This is Jill Pack with the Seasons of Joy podcast. This is episode number 146, entitled Embracing Your Sexual Self in Midlife with Amanda Lauder. Are you a woman of faith who is struggling to navigate your current season of life? Do you feel like life is just happening to you instead of for you? My name is Jill Pack, and I'm a certified faith-based life coach and a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I want you to know that no matter your season or your circumstance, it is possible to create a more joyful life, and I would love to show you how. Are you ready? Let's go. Hello, my friends. Welcome to this week's episode. I'm so glad you're here. I hope you're doing good, and I am so excited to share this conversation with you. Recently, I sat down with my friend, Amanda Lauder. Amanda is a certified sex and marriage coach who helps Christian men and women overcome their obstacles to create a more emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and physically intimate relationship. She also is the host of the Sex for Saints podcast that has over 1.5 million downloads. You're going to love her. And in addition to being a coach, Amanda is also a wife to Kevin, a mom and a stepmom to 5 kids, ranging in ages from 16 to 24. In her spare time, she enjoys reading, watching her kids play, sports, fishing, and camping. At the end of this episode, you're going to learn where you can follow and find more about Amanda, but I will also include links into the show notes. So thank you for being here, and here's my conversation with Amanda. All right. Okay. I am here with my friend, Amanda Lauder, and she is a certified sex and marriage coach, and I'm so excited to have her. I've been wanting to for a long time. I think this is an important topic for those of us in a middle age. So I'm going to turn the time over to you, Amanda, to just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you, and and maybe why you do what you do.
Okay, I'm happy to. Thanks for having me, Jill. So, I live in Salt Lake City with my husband. It's a second marriage for both of us, and I'll kind of get into that a little bit. We have 5 kids between the two of us, ages 16 to 25. We've been married for almost 13 years, so we've been doing life together for quite a while at this point, and we have a beautiful marriage. And it's something that actually is probably one of the things I'm proudest of in my life is my marriage, because we've both experienced really hard marriages, and we work really hard to have a good marriage. So how did I become a sex coach? That is always the biggest question, because it is very interesting to work to do. And especially in our culture and different things, like it's probably not something super common. So I'll just start kind of at the beginning. I grew up in a home, active LDS, where we really just didn't talk about sex. My mom's pretty private, and so there wasn't a whole lot of conversations around it. Most of the conversations were like, it's great, it's beautiful once you're married, but no, now is not the time. And so, based on the conversations we weren't having and conversations that I got from well-meaning leaders at church and, just society in general, I really started to feel a lot of shame about my sexuality and the very normal sexual thoughts and feelings I had as a teenager. And then I ended up meeting my first husband my freshman year at BYU, and we got married right after my freshman year. So I had been 19 for 9 days. I really didn't understand a whole lot about sex beyond just basic intercourse at that point. But it was something that I was looking forward to, even though I felt a lot of shame. I was like, finally I can feel all these feelings and they're not going to be bad. But unfortunately, the switch doesn't flip when you have experienced this. And so it quickly became very apparent that sex was not what I thought it was going to be. And I really didn't have a whole lot of pleasure It's not something I enjoyed. And so it was something that I would fight against and fight off my husband and tell him no, no, no until I couldn't say no anymore. And I would give in. And then I would get him off my back for a little while. And so, fast forward, our marriage was really struggling for other reasons as well as in the sexual realm. And so, I decided that maybe if the sex got better, that our marriage would get better. And so, I decided to face this shame that I had around sex head on. And I started listening to books and reading books and I would, I was watching Oprah one day, and this was like back in the day when she was like on network television at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and she had on these two sisters that were sex experts, and they were one was a psychologist, I think, and one was a urologist, and they talked about sex for women in a way that I had never heard before. It was very sex positive. And they talked about toys and they talked about orgasms. And I was like, what is going on here? And so I just really dove in and really started facing this head on and started questioning a lot of the beliefs that I had around sexuality in general, my own personal sexuality, and sex within my marriage. And I realized that a lot of what I thought and believed really just wasn't true or accurate or helpful in my marriage. And so things began to change. And I actually learned to really like sex, even within that marriage. The marriage was still terrible. So we ended up getting divorced, even though the sex had gotten better. But there was, like I said, a lot of other things that were going into that. And so when I met my husband, my now husband, Kevin, um, we were we were pretty serious at that point, and he was like, we wanted to get married, and he was like, "Do you like sex?" And I said, "Yes, yes, I do." And that was honest. And because I had done all this work in my previous marriage. And so we discussed sex pretty in depth before we got married about what we both wanted in a sexual relationship, what boundaries we had around it, what we liked, what we didn't like. Because we had both been married before and had, experience, we could do that a little bit easier than I could have at 19.
Yeah.
And so sex has always been a really great and important part of our relationship. So fast forward, a few years, and I found coaching. And I first started out coaching women who are struggling in their marriage and contemplating divorce. And I found that a lot of women were struggling in their marriage because of sex. And I had a lot of knowledge on that front. And so I decided to change my niche. And with my husband's consent and blessing, because this is a very vulnerable and open topic that, means that sometimes I have to talk about us and our life, not like the nitty gritty details, but just in general, and made sure that that was okay with him. And he was on board with that. And so I changed my niche, and lo and behold, there's a lot of women out there who really need help in this area. And so I have been coaching specifically on sex since 2019.
Okay.
And I was coaching just women at first. And then I opened it up to couples and helping them build a better intimate and sexual relationship. And then now I also coach men on it
Hmm.
as well. So
I love that. I love that. I think I grew up in that generation too. I'm older than you by a
not
few
that much
years,
older, not
but
that much older.
it was a similar upbringing where that was
Yeah.
just private. You didn't discuss those things, and it felt there was some shame around it, and there
Mhm.
was this idea of like once you're married, it's totally fine, and
Yep. And
you're
you'll figure it out because it's
you'll figure
natural.
it out. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And in my experience, I actually got pregnant before I was married.
Oh,
And
okay.
I don't talk about that a lot, but I have talked about it on this podcast before. So that added a whole other level of
Yes, it
shame,
does. Yes, it
right?
does.
It added a
Hmm.
whole level of shame that I carried for a long time, probably up
Yeah.
until about 10 years ago.
Mm,
I could really like embrace like that's part of my story and
yeah,
it makes me who I am and it gives
absolutely.
me a lot more compassion and empathy for people that are struggling in whatever way. So,
Absolutely.
but yeah, so what a beautiful gift to the people you're working with to kind of
Yeah.
help lift that shade of shame
Hmm.
in a way to help them have a new perspective
Yeah,
about it.
absolutely.
Yeah. So my audience is women of faith,
Yep.
midlife women of faith, right?
Yep. Yep.
So I'm sure that you see a lot of people in that demographic. Am I
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay. Explain what you see when you visit with women like me, you could say. What have you noticed?
Yeah.
And what are some of the struggles that you see these women and men go through
Mhm.
at that season of life?
Well, a lot of what I see is women who have tried to be the good wife for 20, 30 years,
Mm-hmm.
and they're sick and tired of accommodating their husband, and they're ready to step into their own power.
Mm-hmm.
And embracing their sexuality is part of that.
Yeah.
They realize that they really put that on the back burner, did it just for him, lots of years of duty sex a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
I get a lot of women, even in like late 50s, early 60s, who have never experienced an orgasm
Mm-hmm.
and like, I'm ready to figure this out.
Yeah.
I get a lot of women who are either in perimenopause or menopause, and things are changing from what they have been before. And
Mm-hmm.
so they're trying to navigate these different changes that they're experiencing when it comes to
Yeah.
their sex life. And so, we talk about all of it.
Yeah. Because no one tells you.
No, no,
And
they
it's
really
like one
don't.
day you're like, oh my heck, that's very different
That is very
from
different.
what it used to be. Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's
yes.
yeah, you're navigating these changes not
Mhm.
only in your sex life, but in life in general.
Absolutely.
Leaving, your marriage is like kids are leaving, so now your marriage relationship is taking a
That's
different
that's a
focus.
big one. Like, we're gonna be empty nesters, and now my husband just thinks we're gonna have sex all the
All
time, and I am not ready for that.
yeah, yeah. I love the phrase that you said, and I'd love for you to expound on it a little bit. You did a little bit, but it was when you said help them step into their own power when it comes
Yeah.
to this relationship. Explain a little bit what you mean by that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the conditioning that we received was like women are supposed to be more submissive in the bedroom and in life, defer to the priesthood holder in your home. And a lot of women are getting really tired of that. And they're just ready to realize like their strengths and step into those strengths. And that encompasses all areas of life. I always talk to, I mean, all women and men about, a good sexual relationship comes from intimacy with self. So when I say the word intimacy, I'm not meaning sex. Okay. I say intimacy meaning knowing yourself and knowing the other person. Okay. So being fully known and knowing. So you need to have intimacy with yourself. Well, if you've been hiding parts of yourself, including your sexuality, you don't know yourself. You do not have intimacy with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to make those parts be known, right? To yourself and to your spouse. So, intimacy with self and then intimacy with your spouse. And those two things create a great sexual relationship. When
Mm-hmm.
you can know yourself well and know him well, and you have a good relationship, that's a really great foundation for a
Yeah,
great sexual
yeah.
relationship.
It's a beautiful place to be because it doesn't mean it always goes according to plan,
No,
what you think,
no,
but
it doesn't.
you can navigate the nuances of that
Absolutely.
part of your relationship, right? Like
Yeah.
without it being this necessarily a big deal
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
heavy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But it takes being willing to know yourself and be willing to share yourself
Mm-hmm.
with the other person. And, sometimes that's a hard thing to do. Like, I have these wants and desires and fantasies and needs that I have never even wanted to acknowledge, let alone share with my spouse. What is he going to think of me? Or I don't even have those. I don't even know what those are because I've never thought about it and I've never explored it. I've always just deferred to my husband. I'm not supposed to think about these things. I'm not supposed to want these things. Am I?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so women are like, no, I don't have any fantasies because they've never explored.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that is such a key piece. And I think even in the work I do, which I am not a sex coach at all, it takes a lot for me to say the word. No, just kidding. Is that relationship with self,
Yeah.
I think is so critical because if you
Yep.
don't have that, it's almost impossible
Yes.
to build that relationship, whether it's sexual or not, with your partner. Like
Absolutely.
all the parts of you, right?
Yep.
Like
Yep.
and I just think sometimes it's so easy to overlook that. It sounds too easy or like simple, but
Like,
it's
yeah, that's it, really?
yeah, love
But it's
myself.
so
What does that
much.
mean? Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, but it's like,
Yep.
no, when you really truly know yourself, you allow yourself to be known and it
Mm-hmm.
allows you to know others, just like you were saying. Like being known
Yep.
and truly knowing is so beautiful. So what do you think would you say is the biggest stumbling block is we've just by this time in our life we've just stepped back so much that that's hard for us
Yep.
to get there or what do you see is
I mean, some
blocking
women are
us?
ready to step into it. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're just tired of being in the background or
Yeah.
hiding or whatever. They're ready to step into it. And then others, that shame, whoo, it's
Mm-hmm.
strong and they don't feel like they ever can because what if I what if I do and I don't like myself or he doesn't like me?
Mm-hmm.
What if it totally changes everything? And so that fear comes into play. And that fear is valid. It totally is. But it's also going to keep you stuck.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to talk a lot about integrity. And there's a few different ways that I talk about integrity. Integrity being like living according to your values, being aligned with who you are so that your outside matches your inside. That's important.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but integrity also means wholeness. Like, a bowl that has integrity isn't missing pieces.
Right.
It's whole. And if you are not acknowledging or denying or suppressing a part of yourself, you are not whole and
Yeah.
you will never feel whole. And there will always feel like something is missing. And people will tell me that all the time. Like, I feel like something is missing. Sexuality, that's not it. It's something else. And
Mm.
they'll go back to school, they'll find hobbies, they'll
Right.
start side gigs, whatever it is, to
Yeah.
fill this missing hole. And
Yeah.
it's still not enough
Mm.
because they have not embraced their whole self,
Yeah.
including their
Yeah.
sexuality.
Yeah. I think that is so beautiful. I think that for a long time, and I've heard you and I've heard other people talk about this, like just that embracing this idea that we are all sexual beings,
Yeah.
right? Men, sometimes we view men as the sexual being,
Right?
and women support that, right?
Gatekeep that.
Keep that. And
Yes.
and we've been taught a lot of things that are not healthy or good in that regard.
Right. Hmm.
But just really being able to go, oh, like I am a sexual being,
Yeah.
as is my husband. Like this is something we do together. This is an area we can grow together. It's not a one-sided
Yeah.
thing. But I think people my age or that middle age, that takes time to figure that out.
hmm Did you know that most women actually have a higher capacity for sexuality than men do?
No, I did not know
Mm.
that. She's smiling as she says this. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Or is it just
I think that as women, we are more in touch with all of our emotions.
mm,
And
yeah.
so we can experience things deeper.
Yeah.
We also have the ability to have multiple orgasms, which is a higher pleasure.
Mm.
And so I think we actually have more capacity than men do.
Ah, but we just don't know it most of the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Unless you're
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. Unless you have learned lots of things.
I have. I have.
I love that. I love it. So what else do you think? What else do you see women in this season of life struggle with that kind of
Um,
hinders that relationship?
I think a lot of women have found their place and their value in motherhood. And, in this stage of life when, their kids are leaving and maybe even, getting close to that empty nest or they they don't know where to find themselves
Hmm.
because their value has been in motherhood instead of recognizing that they had a role as mother, but their value is so much more.
Yeah. I I see that time and time again. And I even went through that when my kids left. That's when I found coaching, was
Mm,
that space where I could see, my daughter was a year from leaving and I could feel that, like, what's my purpose? Who am I? Because
yeah.
I had spent 28 years doing this job,
hmm
and so it's so interesting how easily we let that become our identity
Yeah.
instead of something we do.
hmm
Yeah, so interesting. And so once we can understand that our value is more than this,
Yep.
then what?
Then we get to find out what makes us tick.
Really get to know ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, who were you before you became a mother?
Yeah.
What dreams and hopes and aspirations did you have? And what do you want for your life for the next 30,
Hmm.
40 years? Because you've got
Yeah.
time,
Yeah. A lot of time.
a lot
And
of
and I've
time.
I've talked about this before. I think that in the church culture, which I love, I
Yeah.
love it
Yeah.
with all my heart. But I think that the message was, you get married, you have a family, and you raise them righteous, and that was like where
And
it
then what?
ended. Yeah, like there
Yeah.
was nothing else. There was no, and so when we
Yeah.
hit that point,
Yep.
it is unnerving because we have we've reached the end of what we think is. And
Mhm.
so it does
Yep.
take some work to realize, like, no, that just was a season of life. There's so much richness and fullness and beauty. And
hmm
in a lot of ways, like, not to take away from the 28 years of mothering that I had, but there's so much beauty here that I actually can appreciate in a different way
Different way. Yep.
because of the age I am.
hmm
It's just expanded so many things. It's like exciting.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. I
um
mean, I'm not one. So I am not one. I love my children, but I did not find fulfillment in motherhood.
mm, yeah.
It's never been something that fulfilled me. Much to my surprise. Like I did not expect that. I thought I would just be fully immersed in motherhood and just find all the joy and happiness. And so when I didn't, it was very distressing. So
Yes.
I've always worked, I've always had jobs, mostly from home because I still wanted to be home with my kids,
Hmm.
but finding my fulfillment other places. And so now I'm down to my last two kids at home. They're juniors this year in high school.
Hmm.
So we don't have that much longer left, and I am
Yeah.
so excited.
Yeah.
I am so excited to because we're a blended family. Um, so both of our juniors, there's one from each of us. And so they go to their other parents half the week. So they're with us half the week, and then their other parents half the week. And of course, I love having them home and the time that I get to spend with them, but I love when they leave.
Yeah.
I love the time that my husband and I get to spend together.
Yeah.
And like I said, like we've worked really hard to have a good marriage and a good sexual relationship. And so I look forward to that time that it's
Hmm.
just me and him.
Yeah. Yeah. I had this moment of mourning.
Yeah.
um, but then you realize like, oh, like we can do whatever we want. This is
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. We can
And
have
it's
naked Tuesdays. It's
we can
great.
have, yeah. Or just, you're not up worrying about when someone's coming home. Like you don't realize how
Yep.
much time and energy that takes when
Yep.
all your chicks aren't back with the hen.
Yep.
But yeah, I had a little, I had to adjust for sure for
Sure.
me. But yeah, it's like this is awesome.
Yeah.
It is so much fun. And just this trip we did, a lot of times we do trips we try to get a lot of our kids coming, and we love that. But we
Hmm.
do some on our own. And this one that we recently did was just us. And I can honestly say, like we both said this, like we feel closer now than
Yeah.
we ever have because we had this opportunity, and not like that we haven't, but it was
Hmm.
like significant enough trip that it just was, I don't know, it was just beautiful to see the connection and love grow even more after 34 years of marriage.
Yep.
It's still possible to
It
just
totally is
grow.
possible. Yeah.
Grows
But
more.
if you don't have that kind of relationship, right? Like now is the perfect time to develop it. Like,
Yes.
if you're heading into empty nest or something and you're like, this is not what I'm not looking forward to it
Yeah.
because of the relationship that you have, it is not too late to fix it.
I love that because I think many people think it is,
Yeah. Which, I
right?
mean, there's a large number of couples that get divorced when their last
Yeah.
kid leaves the house,
Yeah. Don't
right?
they
Like
call that the gray divorce or something?
yeah, something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
And because they're like, well, we've stayed together for the kids and we don't really have a relationship. But if you have the desire to have a better relationship, it is definitely possible.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's so hopeful because because it's not there now, doesn't mean it can't be
Right.
where
With
you want it to be.
intentionality and,
Yeah.
both of you working together. I mean, I am a big proponent, like one person can change the dynamic, but when you have two people who are willing to work on it together, it's going to
Yes.
go a lot better.
Yeah. Totally. Totally. It's any other struggles you see in this season of life?
I think we've addressed most of them. I
Okay.
mean, menopause is a big one. That's really,
Yeah. That one's thrown me for a loop.
all right. Is it?
It has. I'm getting my bearings.
Yeah. Are you on hormones?
Yes. That
Good.
has helped. Yeah. That's what I'm
Good.
like. It's like I just kind of thought I had a hysterectomy probably 8 years ago. I just
Mhm.
thought it was over. Like I'm fine. Like no one
Yeah.
really tells you that no,
No.
there's still things coming.
Yes. Yes. And
So
and so with hormones, there's changes in the body and how you feel. A lot of women experience a lot of pain with sex because of
mm,
vaginal dryness. Um, so there's a lot of things that go on. Hormones are one factor in libido. So like a lot of women just think, well, I need to go on hormones and then my desire will come back. But desire is not just about hormones. Like if we are having sex just from hormones, that's not a good enough reason to have
Yeah.
sex.
Yeah. I think that's a really
Um,
good point.
so desire comes from biological factors like hormones, neurotransmitters, brain processes, that kind of stuff. But we also have to look at the psychological aspects, like what are your thoughts, what are your emotions, what are your belief systems, that
Mhm.
kind of thing.
Mhm.
Then the sociological aspects, what's your relationship dynamic? What kind of conditioning do you have? So if you have like low or no desire, we have to look at all of those things. So we
Yeah.
definitely want to get the hormones right. That's important, but there's a lot of other things that play into it as
Yeah.
well.
I think that's so hopeful too to listeners to hear that there's a lot of different factors that you can look at that can
Yeah.
improve your relationship, your sexual relationship, and it's
Hmm.
not just one magic pill. It's a
Nope.
process of going through each of those things
Yeah.
to find that balance.
Yeah.
So I
If it
love
was
that.
just like one magic pill, we could take Viagra just like men do
Yeah.
and do it. And
Yeah.
all Viagra does is helps with blood flow. That does not
Yeah.
help you get in the mood.
Right.
And so we have to look at all these other things that are happening about
Yeah.
why you have little or no desire
Yeah.
in order for it to all work together.
Yeah. And to the belief that nothing's wrong with you,
No, nothing's
right?
wrong.
If
No.
one of these areas is off or multiple, it doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. It just means
Nope.
you're a human being, a
Yes.
human woman
Yep.
that's
Yep.
has a human body.
Yep. And most of the time, because so men, have testosterone, right? Like lots and lots of testosterone coursing through their body at all times, which makes it easier for them to respond sexually,
Mhm.
right? It also feeds this testosterone feeds the different areas of their brain that make sexual thoughts and feelings more likely.
Mm,
Okay.
yeah.
So it's a lot more natural for them. That doesn't mean that it's impossible for women. It just means that we have to do it with more purpose and intentionality.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to have intention. Yeah.
Hmm.
That's what I've noticed for me.
Yeah.
It's in my
Well,
mind.
yes, it is. It is.
Yeah.
And most women have um, they call it responsive desire. And there's spontaneous desire, which they say like most men have, and responsive, which most women have. I actually don't really like that because men are responsive too. They just respond a lot easier and faster.
Mm-hmm.
But women, so your brain is always scanning, like, should I turn on or should I turn off?
Yeah.
And, if you think your kid's going to walk in the room, like your brain's like off,
Yeah. And
right?
that's a
And that's
function of the female brain,
that
not
totally
of the
is.
male brain.
Not necessarily.
Not
Some men, but
necessarily.
not necessarily.
Some. Yeah.
But it's all so it's scanning your senses, what you see, smell, taste, touch, hear. It's also scanning your imagination and your thought processes. So you have to give it stuff to respond to in order for it to respond.
Yeah.
Okay. So you need to surround yourself and your senses with things for it to respond to. So if you know like a certain smell makes you think of your husband or think of like, something sexy or whatever,
Mhm.
do that, right? Or certain music going on, or, listening or reading a book or watching a TV show. And I'm not talking about like erotica or
Right.
porn or anything. I'm
Right.
just talking about like, something romantic that
Yeah.
oh, that's so sweet. And then it makes you think of your husband, right?
Yeah.
S-
Yes.
But you can also use your imagination and think, oh, remember that one time when we did it in that one place and it was so good? Or, oh, I really wish that we could do this again, or he would touch me here, or whatever. Like you
Hmm.
start thinking like that,
Yeah.
and it gives something for your brain to respond to.
Yeah. Okay. That is so cool. That is so informative.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
I
Thank
got
you.
lots of these. Just
You
keep
got lots
listening.
of things. Yeah. Okay. So, how do you help women if they find themselves, and at the end I'll have where people can find you.
Yeah.
But how do you help people? What do you help them
So
with?
I mean, I have lots of actually different options. So I have a membership for women. It's just like my low price offer that there's coaching calls every week and monthly classes, and there is my Embrace You video course that goes through videos and modules and worksheets and stuff to help you build that relationship with yourself first and build a better relationship with your spouse. And then we get into the sex part.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's really easy. And then sometimes women are, especially if that shame is really strong, they like, nope, I'm not going to go into membership, even if you can be anonymous in the membership,
Right.
which you can
Yeah.
totally be.
Yeah.
I want one-on-one coaching. And so I do offer one-on-one coaching for women and men as well.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also offer couples coaching.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
if they want
All the
to do it as
ways.
a couple or as an individual,
Yeah.
then I do that as well.
Yeah.
And then I know a lot of your audience being in this midlife season, they have kids getting married
Yes.
and they don't want to have to talk to their kids about it.
I know. They
And
have to say the
so,
S word.
yeah. And so I do have an engaged couples course
Awesome.
that if you go to my website, which we'll share, and click on the engaged couples course, there's an option to just buy it, and there's an option to buy a gift certificate so that
Yeah.
you can give it to your kids and or nieces and nephews or whoever else you want to give it to.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
I
it
love
is the
that.
course that we all wish we had before we got
Yeah.
married.
That we wish someone would have told us these things. Yeah.
Yes.
So it
Yes.
wasn't so scary and
Yeah.
unfamiliar.
Yep.
And yeah. Yeah. I love that. What is the benefit if you were to tell someone, like, what's the benefit of coaching around sex?
You have someone who's walked the path and can give you all the details and the tips and tricks, but also help you see what you can't see yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's so many times where we can make progress to a certain degree. And then we're like, what am I missing? Like, why can't I overcome this hump? What's going on? And it just is really helpful to have that guide and that someone that can help you see what you're missing
Mm-hmm.
in yourself.
Someone outside of it, right?
Yeah.
Outside
Hmm.
the emotional piece of that.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
there's, I mean, I have literally coached thousands of women at this point. There is nothing that I haven't heard or seen. I promise. You're not unique. You're, there's nothing you can tell me that is going to shock me. And like it's all done with a lot of love and compassion
Mm-hmm.
because I've been where you've been
Yeah.
and I've come out the other side of it and I've helped so many women come out the other side of it.
Yeah. I love how you described it as a wholeness,
Hmm.
right? As finding your wholeness, and
Yep.
it's not waiting for someone to make you whole. It's
Right.
it's creating that and finding it for
And that
yourself.
looks different for everyone.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, some women think that they're going to come into my program and like I'm going to try to turn them into some like, sex goddess or something. And
Okay.
I mean, if that's who they want to be, I'm all for it, right? But that's not who everybody is.
Yeah.
But it's finding what's true and authentic for you.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's wholeness for you.
Yeah. Which is unique.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uniquely you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I love chatting with you. This is actually out of my comfort zone. I've
Oh,
never
good.
talked about sex on my podcast before,
Good.
but I've loved it. It's so good. And so, if there's one thing that you could leave with listeners, just as we've had this conversation, and maybe they're in that place where they feel like they're alone,
Hmm.
or whatever, what would you offer them? Like, what's a takeaway they can leave having listened to this podcast?
Yeah. I mean, I think start where I started and start questioning things.
Mm-hmm.
That's your takeaway. Just
Yeah.
start questioning your beliefs. Like, what do I believe about myself and sex? What do I believe about my husband and sex? What do I believe about marriage and sex? And what do I believe about sex in general? And just start asking yourself and gain some awareness around that. And if you like your answers, great. Let's see what they're creating for you.
Mm-hmm.
Are they creating what you want in your life and in your marriage and in your sex life? And if they're not, maybe it's time to look a little bit more.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. So where can people find you? What's your website
Yes.
and all of that fun
So
stuff?
my website is just my name, amandalauder.com, and that is actually my last name. A lot of people ask me that. They're like, it's the perfect last name for a sex coach. I'm like,
I
yes, yes, it
know it is. I thought that today when I was typing stuff. I'm like, this name is perfect for her.
it is. It is. And I mean, even before I became a sex coach, I'm just kind of loud. And I mean, you've seen me, I'm
You're
crazy.
fun. You're fun. I
So
look up to people that just embrace life and just
yeah,
are loud. Like
I am. I'm loud.
I love that though. I love it. It's just it's refreshing. So I
Yeah.
love
I
it.
mean, it's really me just being me. That's
Yeah.
who I am.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, so amandalauder.com.
Okay.
And you can find, all my coaching programs on there. I have, on my website, freebies. So I have like three freebies that I just make available to everyone. The first is a yes, no, maybe list. So if maybe you're wanting to branch out from, the routine that you typically go to with your spouse, a yes, no, maybe list might be a good option to explore some things. There might be some things on there that you don't know what they are. It's okay to Google them. I promise. You're
Okay.
not going to come across pornography just by Googling these terms.
Okay.
Okay. And if you really want to, you can DM me or email me and ask me, and I'll be happy to tell
Amanda,
you.
please explain this. Okay.
Um, I also have one on there called the Roadmap to Pleasure. So a lot of women don't understand how to experience pleasure in their bodies. And I'm not just talking about sexual pleasure. I'm just talking about pleasure in general. So this is just kind of a guide to help you to understand how you like to be touched. Babies like to be swaddled or held close, and like, I don't, my kids always wanted me to like rub lotion on them, or,
Hmm.
like they're like, Mom, scratch my back, right?
Hmm.
Because it's that pleasure in our bodies. But a lot of times we lose touch with that. And so this is just a really simple exercise that you can do on your own or with a partner to figure out how you like to be touched. And then the third is this one that it's called 16 Ways to Say No. And you're like, why would a sex coach want to coach people on ways to say no to sex? Because it's okay for you to say no. I want you to say no if you don't really want to say yes.
Hmm.
Okay. But I think that there are ways that we can say no that can help us build more connection and intimacy rather than rejecting our partner and creating that disconnect.
Yeah.
And so it's 16 ways to say no that are actually going to help create more
Yeah.
connection.
Well, and help you say yes when you really want to say yes.
Yes,
Right?
exactly.
Yeah. I love that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then on Instagram, my handle is Christian Sex Coach. And then I have my own podcast that's called Sex for Saints. So
Yes.
there's
It's
like
good.
over 350 episodes.
Yeah.
So it's a lot. On the homepage of my website, I do have a podcast guide that you can download for free, and it can kind of point you in some directions of maybe some episodes to listen to get started, because like 350
Yeah.
something episodes can be quite overwhelming.
Yeah. I was scrolling through them today and reading some of the titles to my husband
Yeah.
just for fun. Like,
Yeah.
there's one on this, honey. There's one
Yeah.
on this, honey.
Yeah.
So
There are, I mean, I'm not afraid to talk about everything.
no,
So
you
I
aren't.
literally talk about everything.
Everything. Yes.
And a lot of them, I find it's funny because the ones that are specifically about like technique and different things to do, sex wise tend to get the most downloads, but I think the best ones are actually the ones that help you create more emotional intimacy that are going to lead to better physical intimacy.
Yeah.
So don't skip over those. They're really good, I promise.
Yes. Yeah. They're also, I haven't listened to all 300 and whatever, but I've
Yeah.
listened to many, and such good information on there. Such good
Yeah. I mean,
information.
the episodes are short. Like I don't do long episodes. There's not a
Yeah.
lot of fluff in
Yeah.
them. I mean, as you can tell, I'm pretty straight to the point
Yeah.
and
No,
don't
I
really
love
mince
that.
words.
Yeah. I
So,
love it. So you could just, yeah, you'd listen to one episode in 15 minutes and
oh, if you're listening just
great.
on one speed, if you go on one and a
Yeah.
half or two, you can get
Right.
through a lot more
Which
than
is
that.
me. Yeah.
Me
I'm a
too.
2-time speeder. So
Yep, me too.
like, this is the best invention ever. 2 times
Right?
speed. I
I
love
know
it.
when things don't have the ability to speed up, I'm like, oh, you've got to be kidding me.
I
This
know
is
it
way
feels like
too long.
molasses. I'm
It
just
is.
like, oh. And some people, it's like, how can you listen? I'm like, I stay focused when it's that fast. If it's
Yep.
slower, my mind wanders.
Wanders.
So it helps rein me in.
Yes, I
So
totally agree with that.
awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here, Amanda. I appreciate your insight and just all the good little nuggets you shared. I think will really help people as they navigate this. It's an
Yeah.
interesting time of life, and so
Yeah.
this will be really good. So thank you
Well,
so much.
thanks for having me, Jill.
Thank you for tuning in to the Seasons of Joy podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you liked what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your friends and family. If you want to learn more about me or how to work with me, just visit my website, www.seasons-coaching.com, and have a joyful week.